like to call this meeting to order, and I'd like to ask for a motion for us to go into executive session to discuss the litigation regarding a board personnel matter and a settlement of pending administrative proceeding alleging employment discrimination. James and May, all in favor? Raise your hand.
Aye.
Right. Any opposed? That carries 6-0. We are now in executive session. We'll recall this meeting to order, and I'd ask that all that are willing and able please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. I'm Di McBride. I'm the board president, and we'll have some introductions. To my right.
Good evening. My name is Anne-Marie Straczynski, Board Vice President.
Hi, everyone. Karen Flanagan, School District Clerk.
Good evening, everyone. Jennifer Laird, Board Member.
May Abdullah, Board Member.
Ariana McKnight, new Student Council Board Representative.
Good evening, Nelana Nassam, Assistant Superintendent of Student and Family Services.
Hi, Andy Whitmore, Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations.
Good morning. Oh, good morning. It's been a long day. Good evening. Dina Wilson, Assistant Superintendent for Instruction.
Good evening. Pat McHugh, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources and School Accountability.
Hello, James O'Brien, Board Member.
Good evening. Nikki LaPlaca, Board Member.
George DeMarteau, Attorney for the District.
Bo Wright, Superintendent of Schools.
I'm going to take a moment here and ask our sound person if you can hear everybody okay. And just remind everybody to get as close to your microphones as you can so that it picks up, especially if you're wearing your mask. Thank you. All right. Agenda review. Any additions or changes to our agenda? All right. Any announcements? I just want to welcome our new student, Ariana McKnight. We're glad that you're here. And actually, that'll lead us right into, if you're ready, to give us your report.
Yes, thank you. So Student Council is trying to organize meetings under the new schedule in order to incorporate all of the students, both hybrid and full virtual. We have started to meet utilizing Google Meet to allow all students to join. Our elected leadership is very interested in anti-racism initiatives and continuing pro-environment efforts. The hybrid student council members had a meeting with Dr. Schaefer today, and their ideas were about lunch, having an outdoor seating, benches, maybe tech classes could make the benches for us. They could also have blankets outside 6 feet apart near the tennis courts, and possibly have it start as a senior privilege and work its way down to the other grades. There would also be indicators outside of 6 feet and mindfulness activities outside for students to relax. Overall, we are trying to get more places for students to relax and socialize at school and make sure we're incorporating all of the students, both hybrid and virtual. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And how do you feel the school year is going so far for you?
It's going well. I'm in the Remote Learning Academy, and it's going very well. Very well.
Great. Thanks for sharing all that information about our student council. This brings us to the public forum. This is an opportunity for members of the audience to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. If you wish to speak regarding an item on the agenda, you can raise your hand at that time, and we will take you at the appropriate time in the agenda. I do have one card in front of me, so I'll ask Mr. Michael Kaida to please come up to the microphone up front for your comments, please. Am I saying your name wrong? I'm very sorry. Keita? Okay.
Hi, everyone, again. Can you hear me? Or is it on?
Boost that microphone a little bit, please. At least in the monitor.
Let's see. Is that better?
That's better.
Perfect, okay. All right, so obviously here 2 weeks ago, we're 2 weeks into school, wanted to give you guys an update, still what we're dealing with, right, and still pushing for. Obviously, we've had normal days, the days that goes to school, right? Those are normal days. Not so normal days, the virtual days. Obviously, hybrid program. I can already see the flaws to it potentially and what we've been trying to stay ahead of here. The cycle of on and off days for Mark, he shouldn't have to deal with that. The social, emotional well-being of I'm in school, I'm out of school. Do I have stuff to do or not to do? Is it summer again? Is it break again? You know, he'd go to school every day. We're trying to be positive all the way around to do the online stuff. And, you know, we're working on that, and he always does his best and tries his best. The update over the last 2 weeks, we did have our meeting, which would have been, you know, this last meeting was the 8th, but the 11th, on Friday, the 11th of September, with Mrs. Tomilty and Jessica Bailey from the Director of Special Ed, to discuss Mark's needs and concerns. We shared our concerns that the 2 days isn't enough, and other kids like him. They both noted that they bring it to Mr. Wright's attention and discuss that with him. So we have not heard anything back from that. So I'm just wondering if those conversations have been had as of yet, to be honest. We did offer up, or they did offer up, extra services of 5 hours of autism time and resources to be added to his IEP. I'm not sure, we're not sure what that even means. Obviously, that letter was dated the 9th. We had our meeting the 11th. 2 points to that. We don't know what that means. No one's explained that to us in any more detail from that meeting. And second, why wasn't that offered before we had to push and pull for it, right? It's something that it seems like a continuous basis here. They did recognize the fact that, Jessica Bailey did recognize the fact that it was a concern to her that the district in normal times last year were struggling to meet his individual needs, and that we're really going to have to be creative and try to do something this year to even come close, to paraphrase it more or less. We did reach out to his teachers, virtual meeting. They seem great, Ms. Curie and Ms. Schwartz. We had that meeting on the 15th. Explained to him that he needs very detailed visual instructions. You know, I could see it from one end. A lot of time was spent Remote Learning Academy and the structure of that, the hybrid plan, and then Mark's a kid that's in the middle of that. That it's like, well, he's over here. He's in the hybrid plan or the Remote Learning Academy, which they get a structured environment 4 days a week. And that's another point of concern where I can already see Wednesday being a wash for everybody. It's kind of like, oh, the school week's 4 days now. What's Wednesday? I see that, you know, being a concern throughout the year if this continues the way the schedule is. They seem great. They've been engaging with them. They've been very communicative, you know, with us. And Mark's been doing his best in the stuff that he's been the 4 days. He's been there 3 days, 4 days that he's actually physically been in school. You know, we've obviously been positive about building his conference of using the online and Chromebook and stuff at home, but obviously that doesn't replace that in-person interaction or even the level of the Remote Learning Academy interaction that the kids get on those, what would be their off days, right, their virtual days. At least those remote kids are getting some type of live interaction, let it not be in person, but they have that structure across 4 days where those 2 virtual days of the hybrid program, and for a kid like Mark, there's no routine, there's no schedule. It's like, oh, here you go. And that doesn't work for him. And that's obviously a reason we've been pushing to be ahead. What I could see here is that the teachers are being geared and asked to do more work than ever. And at the end of the day, that the kids are probably going to get less out of it. And it seems weird to say that the teachers are working harder than ever, and the kids are potentially going to get less out of it because they're working double time or the structure of it. The other point of it is, you know, we keep continuing to push and make the point, and you seem to get a step ahead. but then it only seems to go back to quiet or no outcome or no, at least, not resolution. It's not going to happen overnight, but at least that direct line of communication of, hey, we're working on it, we're discussing it, we're talking about it, this is what we've done so far. The point in the hybrid or district hybrid plan online or outline, clearly states, and quoting that on virtual learning days, schools will identify available to staff to provide assistance during the school day to the extent as possible. That's contrary to the fact of probably the one most recent email that probably went out this week. I think that's pretty standardized that all the principals sent out. That, on those, the teachers are teaching the other half of the class, they're probably not available. Rightfully so, they're teaching the other class. Call a friend, phone a friend, try it yourself. Maybe for some kids. Kids like Mark, he's in the middle. And that's, the problem where he spent a lot of time to offer a fully remote option, which was not our option. In my opinion, they should be there every day. And especially kids like Mark should be there at least 4 days a week. There's plenty of room, I believe. They say the buses are, that'd be a good thing to see what the actual bus ridership rate is early on here, because the kids say the buses are not too many kids, right, on the bus. So I don't, that's another point of discussion to see what, comes out over the time of the school year. But personally for Mark, we're going to continue to push for that and, continue to push for better communication. His teachers seem great. I wish he could be there 4 days because they really get it. But I'd like to know, obviously, those conversations, if they've been had with Mr. Wright, based from the principal, Mrs. Tomalty, and Jessica Bailey. They both said they'd reach out and advocate for that. Obviously not their decision, but I want to keep everybody informed and keep it out in the open because we have nothing to hide but only for the good of him. So thank you.
Thank you for your time. I know that some people were taking some notes, so I'm assuming that someone's going to be getting back to you very soon. Are there any other members of the audience that want to speak for the public forum? I hate to say it, but with masks on, it took me a little bit to figure out who everybody was from this distance, so. All right. That brings us to our item 7, our consent agenda items for routine matters. I'll take a motion to accept. Jennifer. James is second. Now, are there any questions about any of those items? We do have Tom Stewart here who is available to answer any questions about the girls' golf.
I do have a question, who's going to be...
Can you get into the microphone, May?
Sure. First of all, I'm really excited for this. This is an opportunity that kids can take advantage of because I know golf outside of school the cost is huge. So I'm really glad that we're offering this for the girls. So I was wondering who's going to be enrolled in the club? Is it just a high school or?
In Monroe County, it's a varsity sport right now. And so it would be the high school kids. We do have a few not seventh graders, but eighth graders that perhaps would make the team as well. Eighth graders are allowed to participate at a higher level. They go through a process that we would have to follow, but it's for predominantly the high school girls.
Thank you.
Sure.
Have we identified a home course?
Yes, Wildwood is our home course. That's what we use for the boys. We would use that for the girls as well. So they are ready for us if this does get approved.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. This brings us to item 8, the personnel actions. I'll take a motion to accept. As to Anne Marie, second by Nikki. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. This brings us to the workshop on the legislative positions. That's me. Let me get that open. What I did was attended the legislative committee meeting at the beginning of the month, and our conversation at that meeting revolved around the bulleted items that are on the attachment for you. So I plugged those in so that we can work in concert with the Monroe County School Board Association with the legislative priorities. The first one being looking for funding at both the state and federal level for public education. There's the concern over insufficient aid levels, especially needed to address mental health services and equity priorities. The second bullet is mandate relief. Continue to educate local and state leaders about the impact of mandates, and that included underfunded mandates as well. There's plenty of those out there. The other item we talked about at Monroe County School Boards was the relief for COVID-19 costs, advocating for extending FEMA reimbursements, costs for additional substitutes, because we know we will have a great need for that this year, PPE, and additional cleaning supplies. And then item 4, building relationships with new legislators after the November elections and educating them about public education needs and financial burdens, especially for this 2021 school year. There's going to be a substantial amount of new folks in the legislative offices. So our outreach with the legislative committee is to reach out and do our best to meet the new folks and bring them along to understanding public education, that they see what their knowledge level is and help them along with that. The other piece we discussed was also the uncertainty about this year, that we may have to come back and add additional items for our positions. So I just took those, and like we did last year, we made them our own positions to work together to try and achieve things, because there's greater strength in that unity of working together. So are there any questions about those? James?
Yeah, I just wonder, and it sounds like these priorities were adopted by the MCSBA, and then we're discussing to adopt them ourselves. I guess it's just a matter of terminology. But in the first bullet, I wonder if to align with our own district priorities, to put it as addressing mental wellness services and not mental health services, just to line up, I think, with.
Mental health wellness, you said?
Yeah, where it says mental health services, I think mental wellness to line up with.
Sure,
you know,
we absolutely
the
can do that.
terminology.
So we'll make that note, wellness instead of services.
Wellness instead of health.
Yeah, wellness instead of health.
Oh, mental wealth, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Any other thoughts? So, do we want to, with that change, do we want to adopt them this evening? Well, I'll take a motion then to accept the positions. Anne Marie, second by Nikki. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, everybody. Brings us to the superintendent's report.
There's one written item that was submitted for consideration, and that is the incidental teaching report. Are there any questions related to that document? Okay, then we'll move on to updates. It's been a really eventful 2 weeks of school. I'm very appreciative for all that everybody in the organization has done to help us get our doors open. I usually have a pretty good cafeteria voice, so I tend not to worry about projection, but I'll try to get closer to the mic.
Auditoriums are bigger than cafeterias.
Yeah, true. True. Not the one we have here necessarily, but that's pretty big. But as I said before, just really appreciative to all that everybody's doing here in the district, but also in the greater community to help us open our doors, but then also now to help us remain open. As you know, we had 3 positive student COVID-19 cases in the first 2 weeks. But, kudos to the folks at the building level. The protocols were implemented with fidelity, and the buildings were praised actually by the Department of Health for the way that they handled those cases. They did all the right things in real time, and I also want to give thanks to our local Monroe County Department of Health and Dr. Mendoza, because they were of great assistance as we worked our way through all of the steps that were involved in dealing with a positive case, everything from what needs to be and what should be communicated to families and to staff, to what needs to happen as far as the protocols to keep everybody safe. So, the good part is that we were well prepared in terms of, the planning that had happened over the summer. This is something that we anticipated, and unfortunately, given the situation we're in, I think not just in Rush-Henrietta, but in every district, more cases will follow. And that's something that we'll have to deal with as the year goes on, but we will make sure that we implement those regulations that have been set forth by the State Education Department and the Department of Health to ensure that everyone's kept safe. Our focus right now is on finalizing schedules, class rosters, teaching assignments, especially in the Remote Learning Academy. As we said before, we kept enrollment open till the very end of the summer to accommodate as many families as we could. At this point, anyone who is applying for the Remote Learning Academy is being waitlisted unless it's a student who has just arrived to the district and opts into that program, or if it's a situation where a student has a medical condition that would require him or her to be on remote learning. And we also are evaluating requests where you may have a very serious situation that involves a family member or someone else in the household. We're evaluating those as well and trying to prioritize. But as I said before, we have well over 1,300 kids in the academy. And so, we're trying to place kids as it makes sense. But generally speaking, we know that we're going to have to make changes, and we've committed to making accommodations after the first semester. We also are working through the daily attestations with students and staff. We were initially going with, we'd been working with one particular vendor over the summer, and it became clear in the first 2 weeks of the school year that they weren't going to be able to support us in the way that we needed. So we're going to be switching vendors, and we hope to have that in place for both students and staff by the end of the week. Tom isn't here anymore. We talked a little bit about girls golf.
Oh, there's a, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
So hard.
You should have said on phone signal. Question about the daily health form. As a parent whose child has been called down twice and I filled it out, is it a little more user-friendly? I know there's issues with the date, like you can't put 20, like you can't put 20, you have to put 2020. And then if you're doing it the night before, you have to put, is it going to be a little bit more like user-friendly, at least with the date, like a drop-down tab, or, because like Emily's been called down twice, and I get this text, I thought you did it, and I'm like, I did do it, and it's a little frustrating, and I know it's disappointing too, because the kids are pulled out of their class that they're only at once a week for 10, 15 minutes, and as I was told, it's like an eighth of the time. I mean, so is it going to be a little bit more parent-friendly?
So I would say yes,
Yeah.
and I see that Nurlan is moving her mic closer because
Yes.
she has some details.
That
to
is why the Google form was a Plan B.
Okay.
We did not anticipate that we would have to implement Plan B. Plan A was what the vendor was promising us for everyone to receive this so that it would work very seamlessly. And so the good news is that the new vendor that we are working currently with is our visitor management vendor. And so we have had a relationship with them, and yes, this will be seamless as well. So you will not have that problem. That's why Google Form is not the way to go when you have so many
Right.
individuals that has to complete this. So every parent will receive their emails nightly between.
And we can do it nightly, because one suggestion, because I called this morning, and they're like, do it in when you wake up. It's like, I have to fill out mine, and like, I'm like, honestly, I'm lucky if I can brush my teeth before I get out the door. You know, I can't fill out another form.
They are informing me that that email will go in nightly by 1 a.m.
Beautiful.
And so by the time you wake up in the morning, after you do all of, before your child, because that's the spirit, right?
Right.
The spirit of it is that before you even attempt to get into your car to come to work, or before you have to put your child in the car to drive them to school or get on the bus, that you get it done.
Okay.
That way, if they are exhibiting symptoms, they don't interact with other people and
Right,
you keep them
right.
at home. So that's the spirit, yes. So I'm crossing my fingers, okay, and my toes, that we will go live Sunday night, and you will get a robocall. So the community relations individuals and myself, we are working on communication to send that out on Friday.
Beautiful.
To let people know how to access that information, and on Sunday night to remind them, you will see an email from X vendor. Please make sure you complete it.
Oh, good, so it'll come the email will come right to
Right
us.
to your email,
Okay, 'cause
correct.
I know some parents, I was hearing complaints that they had to like try to find it. And,
Yes.
I mean, I would go every night to RH. So, okay.
You will, yes.
I like the email part.
It's
'cause-
automatic every night, yes, between the hours of 1 and 5.
So how much time, because I was confused about, they need an hour before the student gets to school, or sometimes you can do it the night before?
Well, because it will come to your email between the hours of 1 to 5, before you get them on the bus or before you take them to school, just complete it.
Oh, so you have to do
Okay.
it in the morning?
Yes.
So you can't do it like 10 minutes before they enter school, or no? You need to give them a minimum of a time, you
Our
think?
goal is that you will complete it at home.
Okay,
That's the goal,
okay.
And
is
then
it
prior
sorry.
to.
I like the night before.
I like, yeah.
Can't we do it the night before?
Well, if you're up at 1 o'clock.
Close, but no.
Yeah, exactly. So they will send it every night at 1 a.m. That's
Okay.
what they indicated to me, that between the hours of 1 and 5.
Is it one email, and we can choose how many, because for parents with multiple kids in school, we drop down, we can pick their names and then, or put in their names and their schools, or is it separate email, separate sheet?
What they showed me at 3:30 yesterday was that once you get the email, it should pop up with 2 of the children that are listed for that
Okay.
Particular email.
Yeah.
So for you, you will see both of your kids, but you have to do it for each one of them.
For each one?
Right,
Okay.
because one may be well and fine to come to school, but the other one may be exhibiting symptoms, so that's why you have to do it
Makes sense,
individually.
yeah.
And if you are an employee, you will do your employee side, so you'll receive 2 emails, one that you're gonna answer as an employee, and one for your children or child.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nurlan. I mentioned some of the things that we're focusing on in the Remote Learning Academy. We also are focused on what's happening in the hybrid model. I think in-person instruction overall has been very smooth in terms of having kids here. A lot of the things that I think all the adults in the organization were worried about in terms of them reacclimating and getting used to the routines and distancing and wearing masks. I think the kids have done a really nice job with that. I think where we're going to be paying close attention is on what happens during the asynchronous days when kids aren't in school. So we have these 2 models, and as I said before, it's almost like sort of running 2 school districts in a lot of respects, with different administrators and different teachers and different students. but we want to get really good at implementing the models well, because at least for the foreseeable future, this is going to be our reality. And it's new to everyone, and I commend everyone for their flexibility and their patience. I think we're off to a good start, but having said that, we know that we have some things that we need to tend to and need to improve as the year goes on. As I was getting ready to say, Tom was here. He isn't anymore, but there was a Monroe County decision that all Monroe County superintendents made to allow athletics. We did establish a start date of September 28th for allowable sports. You probably saw that football, cheerleading, and volleyball have been postponed as far as the decision goes until March 1st. But all other fall sports are going to be allowed with certain regulations similar to those that we had when we made the decision to reopen our schools. So we have Family ID open right now. That's the registration portal that we use for athletics. And once students register, then we plan to start practices on the 28th. The significance of the 28th was that most schools in the county were starting by September 14th, and that would give us one full incubation period to see what impact students being back in schools would have on potentially athletics. So that will be starting very soon, and we'll see how things go as the school year progresses and moves forward. Just a couple of other things that I wanted to mention, because we do have some events coming up. Schools will be scheduling virtual open houses here within the next 3 weeks. That will be staggered. You'll notice slight differences between the elementary schools and the secondary schools based on logistics. But that will be happening and will be communicated through principals' e-news communications. And let's see here. The last thing that I wanted to mention was that as per the board's request, we've invited 3 principals to present a reopening update to the board on the 13th. And all principals will be submitting a written reopening update similar to what you would receive in a typical school year, so that you can see what's happening in every building. And then Jennifer Tommelty, Greg Lane, and Tim Schaefer will be here presenting to us in person at that meeting as a workshop.
Will one of the administrators for remote learning also give us an update as well, how that's going?
Yes.
Okay.
They will be submitting it in writing. And then also, we were at Cabinet looking at the board workshop schedule just on Monday. Dina and Brad are scheduled to give an ICT update in December, and that will be focused almost solely on our different instructional models related to technology.
Perfect.
And I have a question about the RLA. I know it was much bigger than we anticipated. So what are we looking at class sizes for, the elementary and the high school? I know you might not know the numbers off the top of your head, but I've heard some grumbling.
Yep.
So I was just curious to hear.
They are slightly larger. I would argue that they are still reasonable. But I would ask Pat and Dina to speak to it more specifically. I think because you sort of have that tacit knowledge where you can speak to a lot of those grade levels off the top of your head.
Can you speak into the mic just so the video can hear you? Sorry.
We actually have been running numbers in the last couple of days just to update, and we're going to do that every couple of weeks. The numbers in the RLA are, on average, larger than in the hybrid. generally speaking, at the K-3 level, we're right around our target, which was 20 or so. We have, many of them are in the teens. At the 4-6 level, they're a little bit larger than that. We were targeting 23. We're under that at 4th and 5th, but we are over that at 6th grade. 6th grade is getting a little bit larger. At the secondary level, you know, we were targeting around the board's target of 24. And, you know, by and large, we've held to that, but there are some individual sections here and there at the high school and at the junior high schools, especially in some of the singleton classes like APs or accelerated or elective areas where the numbers are higher than that. So there are a few sections that are in the high 20s. Yeah. And we are monitoring that. We're monitoring on an ongoing basis. Dina and I, in conjunction with the administrators, we did move 5 additional teachers at the elementary level from the hybrid to the RLA on the 4th, right before the start of school. Obviously, once school is underway and kids are in assigned classes and teachers, it becomes much more difficult to disrupt that and start shuffling classes and shuffling students in order to free teachers up. But we are going to continue to monitor the situation, and our plan is to revisit this wholesale in both models at mid-year to see where we are.
Thank you.
Dina, did you want to add?
Any other questions? Yes.
I don't have a question, but regarding the RLA, so I have classes ranging from like, my Spanish class is about 10 people, and like the APs are a little bit more, like 15 is the average, and then I'm in Regents Physics, and that's about 25, so more like the APs are less, and then the other classes are larger, but it varies with each class. Yeah, and I have one question about the fall sports. Will RLA students be allowed to participate in the fall sports? Or
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
They're still part of us. It's not their fault, this COVID. Can't penalize them.
That's right. Any other questions or comments? If not, then that concludes the superintendent's report.
All right. Brings us to old business. This is the action pertaining to the approval of our 2021 Board of Education workshops. We had a look last time. It's on our packet right now. There was 1 or 2 open dates. If we need to, we can add things there, but were there any other workshops that folks felt they had a need for?
What about a special ed update? Is that something we could get about how the special ed classes are functioning during this COVID and just how some of the special ed classes are doing? Like the ICOTs, and is that something
Yeah.
that's possible?
I see special ed in March. Is it something you were looking for sooner, or?
Yeah. If possible, and especially how they're doing with the remote learning and in the different academies. I mean, if possible.
Why don't we let the superintendent look at that and have the conversation with the people involved to see what time frame they could fit in, and he could get back to us about that?
Yeah, what
Okay.
I'll do is I'll go back, we'll just reshuffle some things, and then I'll put it back on the agenda next month.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
So would we like to hold off then approving this set of workshops, or we can just approve an updated version at the next meeting?
Updated version.
All right, so I will take a motion to approve the existing workshop schedule by Nikki, second by Jennifer. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right. All right. This brings us to new business, and so I'm just going to get out of this. Under new business, we have the NISBA conference resolution worksheets. I had a couple folks hand them to me tonight. Karen put in the book for us to look at. If we could, by the next meeting, you can email that to me, you can hand me paper, whichever works for you, that would be great. I'm still kind of curious how they're going to run this virtual business meeting with voting, but hey, it'll be a new adventure for us, so. The next item is the National School Board Conference. I let Karen put that on there just so we could remind each other that we came to the decision last year before the end of the school year that we would not be sending anyone to the national conference because of cost. And we just felt that it didn't make sense to do that for the coming year. What I will say is if someone really wants to go, we're not going to stop you on your own dime going, but there really isn't much money in the budget. We need to keep what we have to help with the situation we have at hand, okay? So that's just a reminder as you start getting emails that we can register soon. That was a conscious decision we made because of cost. Item C is our board policy review plan that was put in our packet for us. And the dates are in there for us with which policies are going to be reviewed. Our first one coming up in October are the ones that were delayed from April 2020 here due to COVID. So that is our new policy cycle. All right? Everybody good with that? Perfect. Brings us to board member reports. First three are me again. My lucky night. So the first one is the Legislative Committee for Monroe County School Boards. I gave you the information regarding the priorities that they were looking at. Discussion also revolved around position papers that need some updating that we'll be working on, and hopefully in November some of them will have some updates and be sent out to each school district. We had a discussion about the resolutions. And it really, was more of a conversation about the virtual format, and so we really need people to participate because we have a quota that we must meet, and if we don't, the business meeting can't happen. I know Bo was there attending as well. I'm trying to think what else. Anything else?
I think you covered it.
Yeah. All right. The next item is the Monroe County School Board President's Meeting, which I did attend as well. And we're changing the format of that this year to be a board leadership meeting. So presidents and vice presidents are welcome to come. So Anne Marie, if you want to come with me, let me know. I'll get, make sure you get the dates for that. That meeting is a non-agenda executive session style meeting where it gives board presidents, board leaderships an opportunity to have conversation and say things that you wouldn't want when you're upset about funding or whatever. But we did talk about, we gave an opportunity for folks to talk about any school reopening issues they had and kind of compare notes with one another. We did talk about fall sports, as you heard Mr. Wright discuss, and which ones the governor has delayed. We talked about the equity that was voiced if not all schools participate in the varsity sports. That was a concern. Concern also was about transportation for those folks in the sports program. It's going to take more transportation to be able to adequately space them, which then affects our costs. And then that brought us right into talk about financial issues. Members are concerned about the perceptions from the public about schools they're providing less for students, and so they're saving money, and that they don't feel they should pay their taxes. So that's a conversation that's out there that we were trying to have a conversation about and address, because there's nothing further from the truth that we're spending less money. In fact, we're spending more money. And there was also a conversation about issues regarding unemployment costs that were going up, that some 10-month employees in some districts were filing for unemployment and received unemployment, and some folks at the table were like, really? But yes. So that's something that will also be brought up at the Labor Relations Committee topic in October. And then we got into a very spirited conversation about structural racism and equity. And it started out as a good conversation. I will have to say that an individual within the meeting got very agitated and took out some aggressions on a good part of the room. And so we decided it was time to end that conversation for the night and to come back to it another evening, because it doesn't serve any good purpose to attack the people in the room that are trying to work together on this very, very important conversation. It was a little disheartening, but we will come back to it because it is important, and we did try to make it aware, especially from my perspective, that it is one of our highest priorities in this district, and we need to work together. Next is DPAC. I did attend DPAC. I feel like I had this conversation with already in this group, but if I haven't, okay. We did review the purpose and membership and meeting dates, the role of all the liaisons, what the purpose of having them come to the meetings is about. Some of the groups were, parent group liaisons were able to give reports. Not all of the PTOs have met yet, so there wasn't a lot to report. The superintendent did give his report about the district priorities. We talked about the parent engagement priorities, their plan of work. He gave a review of the opening of schools at that point because that was on the 10th. And he gave a call for parent volunteers for budget advisory and space committee. And that was it for DPAC. That brings us to the Henrietta Youth Development Advisory Committee.
That's me. I wasn't able to attend because it was Roth Junior High's first parent group meeting of the year, so I had to pick. Yes.
All right, thank you. And the Upstate Institute?
That's me. That was today. We were talking about our conference planning update. We are doing our para-educator conference all virtually in November. We changed the date from the superintendent conference day in the 9th, I think, was most districts got rid of that. So it's going to be for November 18th, and we chose Wednesdays because most of the districts around here are using that for staff education. And the Safety and Security Conference is now scheduled for November 4th, and that will also be virtual. And our next meeting is not until the end of January.
All right, great. Is there any other business for this evening? Anything that we missed? Anything we need to address? I'm like looking at my watch going, can't be. All right, I'll take the board meeting recap then.
All right, all agenda items were accepted, and Bo is going to get back to the board on when the special education workshop will be moved to. And by next meeting, for anyone who hasn't gotten Diane the NISBA conference resolutions sheet, get that to her either on paper form or through email. And we agreed to no one will be attending the national conference this year due to the cost. And October 13th is our next meeting.
And we'll get a fresh copy of the legislative position out to you with the wording change. I think that's it. All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn our meeting. Nikki? James is second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, everyone.